Hi, listeners and viewers. Welcome to another episode of Illuminating Mind Matters with BASANTnow.org. I am Shalini Dayal. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I'm your host today. Our topic today is reintegration into the new normal. And with me, I have the pleasure of two wonderful local marriage and family therapists here with me who will be talking about what are the concerns, anxieties, hopes, and worries about reintegration into the new normal as schools and colleges and work is opening. So I have the pleasure of introducing Surinder Harish. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. He spent over 30 years in tech and now works in Fremont with couples, adults, and adolescents. He views therapy as a process to cultivate seeds of hope in one's life so they could achieve success, happiness, and peace that they deserve. It is, and this process is accomplished by identifying and leveraging one's strengths, skills, values, and interests. The other person I have is Sangeeta Biswas, also a licensed marriage family therapist, and she sees clients in her private practice, Lotus Family Therapy, in Fremont and Pleasanton. She helps families and individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds on issues of acculturation and assimilation, stress in relationships, and parenting styles resulting from migration. She works with the South Asian population, providing culturally sensitive therapy to families, couples, and individuals in Hindi and Bengali. In her spare time, she dabbles in art. And actually, tomorrow is her first art show. So I'm very honored to have you both with me today on this topic about reintegration into the new normal. And thank you for joining me on your day off and time off. So I have a few questions, and I would like to start with you, Sangeeta.
Sure.
What are some of the worries and anxieties our kids and teens are feeling as schools are going to be reopening soon?
Right. Thank you, Shalini, for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be with Basant. It's just home. So I just want to talk just for a couple of seconds about how it was in 2020 when these kids faced the kind of anxiety when within 7 days, we were like, go, go, go. It was everything was shut down. We had to completely transition, and all of that time, the kind of distress that had manifested, we had seen it as clinicians. We were watching as parents, as adults in their lives. We were watching that, right? And now, fast forward, and the entire time was we want to go back, right? And we had no idea when we would go back. So thankfully, with the pandemic being where it is today, we are able to transition our children back to school. And now when they are going back, which we've been talking for a little while, which is a big difference between when we had shut down, was we didn't have any time to process it, right? So the kind of adrenaline and the impact on the brain was tremendous at that point of time. This time round, one of the things is we have had some time to process it because we've been talking about going back. But as it's approaching, we can see that there are some anxieties that are coming up for kids across the board, right? And this, we're just not talking about clinical anxieties. And it's interesting because we've been, I mean, 99% of them have been they just want to go back to school, right? They don't enjoy inline school anymore. They just want to go back. And yet when they are actually, the contrast, they're getting something that they want, they're getting anxious, and that is leading them to more anxiety. What's happening? Can I not go back to school? So the questions are not just about safety, which is there for some of them. Obviously, it's a matter of safety. Or is it even safe to go? But sometimes I feel even the conversations around safety is a diversion to talking about the other emotions that they are feeling and they're not being able to express, showing up as anxieties. And so it's still a transition, it's something that they want, but it's still very difficult for them to do, right? So in validating that for them has been, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I'm looking at the anxiety. Safety is there, obviously they're thinking about safety, but then all kinds of, if you dig it a little deeper, it's even the, as they call it, I know it's very silly. They'll start with, I know it's very silly, but even will I be able to remember where my classrooms were, or there are some kids who've never been to the actual physical layout of the school, right? All of these things and are coming up, which are causing a lot of distress at this time, which is interesting that this distress is being met by their question of why am I feeling this, because I shouldn't, right? When schools shut down, they could express their anxiety in a more validating environment. In this case, they are self-invalidating that a lot. So I'm looking at the anxieties is not just the content of the anxiety. It can be like a whole, but it's always added with why am I feeling this? It's a good thing. Why should I be feeling this? So that's an interesting contrast between both these times that we've had. Uh,
Thank you for those wonderful points. And I'm going to actually I'm making notes because I'm going to come back and ask you about some of the things that you brought up. I'm going to switch over quickly to Suri and ask you, Suri, what are you hearing from your adult clients about going back to work, about mass mandate being removed, or meeting people? What are you hearing from them?
It's fascinating that between there was one common element, as Sangeeta mentioned, that the change last year was sudden.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened. It was imposed on us. No matter what, we had to adjust to it. And that adjustment was tremendous. And we adjusted, people changed their entire lifestyles. If you were married with children, you were with your spouse and children 24 hours a day. If you were single, all of a sudden you were alone, couldn't date anyone, couldn't see anyone. Uh, if you if you were used to the office environment, that didn't exist, so everybody adjusted in some different manner. Uh, some at that moment just left the area, moved back to their parents' home because companies gave them an idea that there were young folks here. There are a lot of young folks in workforce, and they just went back to their parents' home. Others got up and went to their home states where family or others were close by. So the change happened and they started making different plans. All right. And there was some, and they found some uh, good elements in it also, like they could save money. But at the same moment, there were things which were happening negative, like as Sangeeta mentioned, some kids hadn't seen the school. Some workers haven't even seen the environment. They don't know what mentoring means. So a lot changed. To them, the work environment was very different. All right. Now comes the 2021. The therapist and psychologist has given this re-entry a name, COVID re-entry syndrome. All right. So that means this is a challenge that population is facing, and we are seeing it. I talk to many clients from high-tech companies. I won't go into naming them, but a big one is when you start, I mean, the list really is very, very long. Nobody could really cover all aspects of all the anxieties that individual face, but the list is relatively long, but it starts with the work habits. People's work habits changed tremendously. They could get to the kitchen anytime. They could go to watching YouTube anytime. So their work-life balance totally got shattered. And now, as they come back into this force, how do you bring back that work-life balance? They are not able to fathom that. They just are puzzled, they are annoyed, they are sometimes finding themselves unable to adjust to that. On the top of that, what is bringing people a lot of things is the schedule. There are many families where both husband and wife, the spouses work. How do you adjust to everybody's schedules? It's becoming a big challenge. The one that I do want to mention is the relationships. Not the obvious schedules, not getting a nanny, but the relationships has altered, and I have no clue how that will manifest itself in coming weeks and months, because the relationships, it became 24 hours. They had to live with each other. They somehow managed. Will this bring them closer, or will this bring them apart now that the freedom is returning? And that challenge is coming to individuals. Many minorish, not minor, actually, every one is a major one. Interactions in the new office, how are they going to be? Whom do we talk? Whom do we don't talk? How do I go back to in-person conversation? That's a huge challenge, and many people were uncomfortable. And now that discomfort is just appearing in a wholesome manner. Now, there are there is another anxiety that keeps popping up: uncertainty. Companies are not giving very specific guidelines. Initially, you could work from home from anywhere. Then it sort of got restrictive. You need to come back to work, and maybe at the minimum 3 days a week. You can apply for longer if you want to. So there are that uncertainties, and people's plans where they are going to live because they are relocated is kind of surfacing. So I tell you, the number of things which are worrying people as you talk to them are as numerous as individual you see. I just wouldn't be able to go to all of them, but I
I
kind of try to touch the significant ones.
You brought us some really important ones because I'm going to circle back and ask you some specific ones that kind of stood out for me.
Yeah,
Suri, thank you very much.
sure.
Sangeeta, coming back to you, what do you see that parents are now struggling with, as their children are getting ready to go back, and what can parents do to help the kids, as Suri said, re-entry, navigate this re-entry process?
I mean, it's obviously a big, it was so insignificant what Suri just pointed out, the sedentary lifestyle that everybody has gotten used to, right? Even with kids, the entire school, the classrooms come to them. They don't go to the classrooms, right? The parents are also now used to just knocking on the door, get on Zoom calls, right? So all of these, this actually movement, planning for it, right? Making just executive functioning decisions. You need to plan out this much. You need to get all of this stuff at home. You need break. All of these have gone for the last 1.5 years, have just not impacted kids who are just getting out of bed and going on for Zoom calls, but it's also parents have also not been planning for all of these things for a long time, of driving them to school, what's the pickup look like, what does extracurricular activities look like, right? So it's not just the anxieties of the kids, it's also for the parents. And like like we say in our work, you have to have put the oxygen mask first on yourself and then on your children, right? So of course parents have to attend and be mindful of the anxieties of children and not dismiss that off, but especially by having the conversation, because of conflict. A lot of things will work out on their own. In a couple of weeks, I keep telling that to parents also, in a couple of weeks, so you will figure out how to drive, I mean, how when to drive and when to pick up and all of that. But the conflict that you will have at this point of time, the potential for conflict in relationships, please be aware of that. So mindfully just not invalidating your child's anxieties when it comes up by saying, well, it's a good thing, you've always been wanting to go to school, what's wrong with you now? Versus saying, just labeling this entire space as an adjustment. And when we use the word adjustment and use the word new normal, instead of saying, well, it's going back, it's a good thing we're going back to normal. There is no going back to anything. We are adjusting to a new normal. We've done it before. So for parents to stand there, give that sort of that message to kids. We've done this before as a team. We will do this as a team again. There'll be some balls that will be dropped. We will have some mistakes. I'll not pick you up on that. I'll make some mistakes. You'll make some mistakes, but we'll be kind to each other as we make this mistake. Because we're one team. and we are going to adjust. The word adjustment, why? Because there is a sense of transitory nature. There's that message of it being transitory, right? When we call it an adjustment, we all know we have it in ourselves our brain understands that it's a time frame. So when we actually go the first day, it's going to be tough. So instead of saying, why aren't you happy? Why aren't you, instead of forcing the feelings, if possible, share, I'm anxious too, I understand, but we will get by this together. So an opportunity to kind of be on the same team and have that experience, a shared experience, talking about it. I feel this will allow the relationships to get better. So that is what parents, instead of just, of course, focusing on the executive functioning piece of it, focusing on the planning piece of it, they're all important. But just having that moment of taking a deep breath, seeing each other as a team, not as I need to just get you, I can understand how frustrated it is. I don't have young kids at home, but I can just imagine this. There are different kind of adjustments, different kind of challenges around it. But at the end of the day, we are a team. It's a shared experience, and we will get through it. We have been talking about this for the longest time. This is going to kick in. Our systems will kick in. It's just a little rusty. It will kick in. So you see the conversation around how the tone of conversation is more important than the content of conversation. That I feel, instead of just going go go go. Well, how do we make it the most? How can we be most competent in this? Versus how can we make this as an experience that we can understand for each other. I think that messaging at the core of it will allow the other planning piece of it, the getting to class, getting there, is just as soon as we give ourselves the permission, it's okay. We will drop a few balls, but it's okay. It's an adjustment for all of us. That is what I.
Absolutely. And, thank you for sharing that, Sangeeta, because it really highlights how important it is for parents to acknowledge what their kids and teens are going through and feeling. And it's not like people ask me, well, we have done this before, we can do this again. It's not like riding a bicycle. It's a very different kind of bicycle. It's a very different kind of vehicle that we are going to be all relearning together to ride. So the other thing I want to add in here, because I know from a lot of kids and teens, because of the sedentary lifestyle and schedules, like, I think one of you mentioned schedules. I think Suri mentioned schedules. Schedules are off. Getting up in the morning, getting up is going to be hard. The other thing that is coming up is body image issues. A lot of
Yes.
teens are wondering, and people, I think even adults are wondering, oh my goodness, I look different. I haven't moved much. How am I going to sit on my chair for 8 hours? Who am I going to talk to? Social anxiety has rocketed. So I would like both of you to touch a little bit about some of the topics as well. And switching over to Suri, what would you recommend? What adults can do to help themselves re-enter?
The key thing that Sangeeta brought was a keyword, adjust. All right. That's a very significant word. It's like, in my mind, when I am talking, that if you were put in a darkened room for a long period of time, and then you have to come into light. It's just from one darkened room, you're coming into light, but it's not that simple. And that requires a lot of adjustment. I kind of come to the point that it all starts with acknowledging first. Acknowledging that it's a significant change, it's a major change, it will take effort for me to move into that arena. Knowing that humans are the most adaptable species on planet Earth. Nobody can adapt as well as we do. And having that belief does help. So kind of start with that adjusting element. From there, one can then move into many, many different areas, wherever we want to move, because you have acknowledged that that's where we want to go. You can pick any particular area. Let's say the topic we could pick is their schedules. All right. Lord, I have heard so many things. Children telling that they're in meetings and they're just not meetings. They're in the classroom and they just go back to sleep. All right. Or adults doing the similar things. They put it on listen mode, and then they are doing whatever things they need to do, which they cannot do in the office. So that now will require a significant adjustment. And one thing they could do towards that adjustment is start moving in that direction now a little bit. That I will have to behave differently. One thing that I kind of talk to my adult clients is start changing to the clothes and dress you're going to wear to office at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock now, and change your clothes back at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, so you can start building that adjustment in your schedules. That feeling could start coming, and that adjustment could start happening right now before you walk into the office. So again, I kind of want to continue with that adjustment thinking. I don't know if I should continue with this
Oh no,
or
you're good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Because I'm looking at time and I want to keep an eye on time. We have a little bit less than 5 minutes left. Sangeeta, I want to switch over to you. And thank you, Sari. That was really good when you talked about the gradual adjustment and the change versus doing it abruptly and thinking it's going to happen smoothly, because it won't be. It's going to have its little hiccups and it's going to have problems. Sangeeta, what would you recommend
Yeah,
to the kids, our kids and teens,
yeah.
that
And
that will help them?
right. And again, all the things that Suri said, they're excellent to just transition for kids and also. And I would just like to kind of uh, remind them that the distress that comes up, why are you going to school? Like, not just for not for anything else, but you have actually at the core, you have valued these friendships. You have valued, you value getting back with your friends, right? So when the why will you push through this? One part of it is, of course, how you will push through. And then the why piece of it, a reminder of that, not just that it's good for you, but what's the most pure selfish piece of you that wants to go to school? A reminder, have some kind of a reminder towards that. Then you will push through the distress. The distress will happen. It will happen in different degrees for each one of you, but you value this. You value your friendships, you value your connections, even if it is with one person or 20 people, it doesn't matter. And just not coming from a place of what is positive or negative, but coming from a place of what do you value. We go over that, and that keeping them in that direction means they will push through it. And integrating the things that Suri said, making some of those changes, the willingness to do that comes from that place that the distress is there. One, the validation, the distress is there. Why you want to push through that distress, and here is how you want to push through that distress. And working together as a team with parents, I think this is our best bet. We're still in uncharted territory. This is our best bet to do that. And I really hope all the kids and the parents and the adults, we manage to do that based off that value of connection, because that's who we are. We want to
That
be
is
connected to.
valuable. If you can, Sri, and summarize in a couple of sentences, like the takeaways that you would like the adults to leave from today. And I'm going to come back and ask you the same thing, Sangeeta. So,
big topic to adjust into one or two sentences.
I know.
But my thought that will be individual to that I will be giving is that the key element is that you are not alone. There are others who are in similar state of mind. Similar things are happening. So seek ones who support you and support others who need help. If you could do these two elements, seeking individuals who support you and helping others who need help, you will find yourself more satisfied and easier to adjust. The last one statement I want to make is a definition of anxiety. we sometimes think it in negative terms, most of us or many of us. I always tell people to equate anxiety to plan and prepare. It's an invitation to plan and prepare.
Okay.
And as long as you do that, you will be all right.
That is very valuable. Thank you, Suri. Sangeeta, if you would can sum up.
I can't really follow that. Suri, that was awesome. I just want to remind, absolutely. And I also remind all my the kids and parents is that anxiety will tell you that the problem is much bigger than what it is. And
Mhm.
it will also undermine your abilities. So don't always listen to, be worried, because that helps you to plan, but also don't believe everything, because there are things that will kick in, and things the universe will come together to provide to you. So
Mhm.
be in a mindful, kind, self-compassionate state to what Suri said, to receive and to be of service, and
Very,
not to always believe that
very
abilities are more that are less than what anxiety would like you to believe. So I want that for each one of us to hear that we actually are, our actual abilities are much more than what sometimes our anxieties tell us.
yes. Thank you both. That was beautiful. Thank you both and for this time. And I appreciate you making this time for us for Illuminating Mind Matters. And to our listeners and our viewers, I would like to remind you we will be continuing our show, and hopefully we will be able to see you soon and the next week with a new topic. Thank you again. Thank you for your time. This was very valuable. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.